Hello, everybody. We are live for Trumpet Q and A number 281. I'm going to do something a little bit different this time. I want to do a couple of ads, but bear with me. So when I say ads, I want to tell you about my products that might not be. And in fact, the first one isn't even one of my products. I'm going to share with you a link for the Tom Bowling Bebop Band, and so that's Tom Bowling's and the money he gets from uh, you listening to it. Look at my hair. The money that he gets goes to him. Um, so I'm promoting it because it's an album of all my songs. I mean, with the exception of one, they're all my songs on the album. Um, and remember, I think last week. Oop, I didn't know you could see that. Remember last week I was talking about the mouthpiece that I played on that album and how I lost that mouthpiece because I lent it out to somebody and they didn't give it back. And they ghosted me. Either that or the guy passed away or something. He was old. Um, well, this album is what put me on the map as a jazz musician in Houston. This is what made people start saying, oh, this guy can play. Now, there's people who knew that already. My good friend Dennis Dodson, who you guys have heard on this Q&A, Dennis was my champion. And I'm always very grateful to Dennis because he got me into the jazz world here in Houston, getting the gigs. But yes, a lot of people just never really paid any attention to my jazz stuff until that point, right? And the fact that the album has my original songs on it, and those original songs, you know what the thing is about original songs? Is that you write them in a way that fits your personality, right? Your musical personality. Well, the other guys in the band struggled with it because they were approaching it in a very, very different way and I don't mean, I'm not saying, David Caceres is on there and I'm not saying he struggled with it, but a lot of the guys did. And the reason why is because they were still trying to play vertical. And the tunes I wrote weren't supposed to be played that way. I didn't have the arrogance to tell them, hey, you're doing it wrong. I never mentioned it to them that these tunes are not vertical, not meant to be played vertically. But yes. Anyway, so I put the link in the description for those of you who can't access the chat later. And if you want to hear what we would say modern, but it's not modern. It's just not entirely traditional. And if you want to hear what that sounds like, that's the link to go there. Now, the second thing I want to advertise while we're at it is the first book I ever wrote. Let me pull that up real quick. The first book I ever wrote is The Physical Trumpet Pyramid. So let me put the link here. The physical trumpet pyramid, I've told you guys before that it was a failure, but then I rewrote it. It's sort of the teacher's guide. This is my friend Daryl Bear told me he sees that the physical trumpet pyramid book as a teacher's guide for my method, and I like that idea. So it gives the newer books don't need to have understanding, but if you want to have understanding about why the exercises in that order work that way, then the physical trumpet pyramid explains that. I haven't read it in a long time, so I'm not sure how much of it I would change today if I was going to do another. This is actually the third edition. I don't know that I put third edition in the book, but it's the third variation of Hello Karen. It's the third variation of the original book. Anyway, so those are the two ads today. Let's get to the questions. We have plenty. Cardo says, Hi Eddie, I hope you are doing well. When I try to play long notes with dynamics, the notes break when I do the crescendo. Why does this happen? Because the balance shifts. As you go louder, as you push more air to get more volume, you have to compensate in the resistance. You have to let the resistance open up a little bit more. You need either a more relaxed embouchure, or, and when we say relaxed embouchure, what we really mean is a bigger aperture or a bigger oral cavity, which means the tongue and the teeth working together to open up a little bit. You guys have heard me say that playing the trumpet is a moving target. When you add dynamics to the picture, that target is now moving even faster. All right, the combination of no, I shouldn't say combination. The balance of air against the balance of resistance is even more out of whack when you add the dynamics to the picture. So yes, going louder on the same note requires you to have a bigger and so think about this, right? The whole Cat Anderson 30-minute G. Why in the world does the 30-minute G give you high notes? Think about that. You're doing the same note and it's not a high note. And the only thing that makes it special is the fact that it's super, super, super soft. Well, when it comes to oral cavity, the balance between the air and the oral cavity, the resistance, balance between the air and the resistance is the only difference between, well, let me put it this way. Playing soft is the same thing as playing high. The physical, what you have to do to play physically, to play soft, is the same thing you have to do to play high. Now, I don't recommend, for people that use my method, I don't recommend the 30-minute G. And the biggest reason why is because of the 30 minutes part. Okay, I can think of a whole bunch of different ways that you can spend 30 minutes And a lot of you don't have that much time to practice. So if you're spending the whole time, if you're spending a significant part of the time playing the 30-minute G, you're not spending that time doing other stuff. And that's important. That's important. We don't want to become meatheads that just play high. I don't know anything about Cat Anderson's other practice habits besides this. Did he practice more after he did this? I don't know. I sort of don't even care, right? I sort of don't even care. But anyway, the reason I'm mentioning that is because physically it's the same thing. Um, Playing soft requires a much smaller aperture. Let me tell you this. Here's another. I've told you guys in the past that I had that wonderful lesson with Charlie Geyer, who recently passed away, I guess about a year ago. And we were talking about intonation, and he was talking about. Well, let me get my horn. You know the end of Petrushka where it goes, right? Let me get my stand. This is Charlie Geyer, one of the highest, most regarded, most well-regarded trumpet, orchestral trumpet teachers in the country, right? And we're talking about intonation, and he used as an example that last section of Petrushka. And he says it's posto diminuendo. And then he points out that because it's diminuendoing, the pitch goes up. So the last note is not as in tune as the rest unless you adjust. So to me, what that tells you is that as you get softer, and you have to, if you want to keep the same pitch, you have to have some you have to have some what do you call that? Compensation. Otherwise, the pitch will just keep going up. That's what he told me. Okay. Anyway, that's another anecdote about how this works. And if you think about it, because when in the past when we talked about the moving target, we sort of assumed that we're playing at the same volume, and the moving target is the different notes, because each different note requires a different balance between the air and the resistance. Each note requires that, and that's what we meant back then when we were talking about the moving target is playing the different notes. But what we're talking about now takes that and makes it, is it proper to say exponential when you have multiplied by multiplied? Isn't that the right word? It's exponentially more moving. Because now you add the element of dynamics. So let's say you're going up a scale and getting louder. What are you going to do? It is extremely complicated. And if you're trying to manhandle, and when I say manhandle in this context, I mean try to think your way through it consciously. If you try to do that, it's going to fall apart. So what we do now, some people hearing this would say, well, shouldn't I then be practicing dynamics in my routine? And to me, the answer I have for that is no. Get the routine done. Don't try to bog it down with all this extra stuff. One of the reasons we practice literature is to practice this moving target. And keep in mind, I know I'm bogging down on the first question, okay? Keep in mind that, oh, I forgot what I was going to say. Yes, keep in mind, when I say that the trumpet player, that great trumpet playing is mental, this is what I'm talking about, that moving target. It's so complex, you can't think your way through it consciously. So keep in mind, I don't know how much I've talked about this in the Q and A, but everything that happens to us in the subconscious has to be triggered. That's how the subconscious works. It has to be triggered. You have to have something in your thought process that pulls that out of your subconscious mind. Otherwise, it's just information that's stored on your hard drive that you can't get back, which happens to me quite often on my hard drive. I've been collecting uh, stuff that I've written over all these years, and it wasn't always organized. And when I go to my hard drive, I sometimes can't find it. I don't remember what I called it and stuff like that. Um, and our subconscious minds are like that. Our subconscious minds are like that. We have to have a way to retrieve what's in there. And my stance is having the sound of the song in your head is that trigger. You hear it in your head and your body. I believe I'm not an expert on song and wind, but the deeper I get into this is what the term song and wind means to me. You hear the music and your body follows suit. That's my understanding of what song and wind is. Like I said, I barely even read the book. Um, so I don't want to profess to be an expert on Arnold Jacobs' teaching, but just from what I understand about how the mental side of the instrument works, that's my understanding. Now, I think I disagree with Arnold Jacobs on a few points. I do believe that there is a call for um, practicing exercises and stuff like that. And I don't quite know what his stance was, but in talking to a lot of people that follow his method, I get the impression that they're not big fans of practicing exercises. But here's my stance on that. I actually believe that a lot of people have such horrible bad habits that you have to do something to to make those habits, changing the habits to make it more natural. So you have to have, a lot of times you have to have the exercises to reorganize what's in your subconscious. Anyway, David says, by the way, hello, Cardo, hello, David. David says, how do you recommend balancing routine versus music? When I have a lot of music to get through, I have been picking a simple routine like Chops Express Apprentice for about 15 to 20 minutes and then move to the music work. I I I fully approve of that message. Yes, that's a good way to do it. When you have more music, that see always, and this aligns with what we were just saying right now. Always, the music is more important than the exercises. Always, 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 always. So when you have a deadline and that deadline requires you to spend more time on the music, then do that. I'm very firm on that. Um, so Pakek um says, "Hello, Eddie. Greetings from Chile. Hey, oh, I know who this is. Finally got a new trumpet, and even years has passed. I could play right away, no problem, thanks to your method. Woo! Javier, I'm glad to hear from you, and I'm glad to hear that. What do you think of minimal time practicing Chops Express and most of time in tonalization? My weakness is exactly that. No problem with range or tone tonguing. Um, I that's what I do. I have right now. I've got 3 levels, maybe 4 levels of routine. If I'm really in a hurry, I won't do the extra tonalization studies. But normally, if I'm doing Chops Express, which I often find myself doing now when I do practice, I find myself doing Chops Express and augmenting it with the tonalization studies, all 20 exercises. And I think that's a great way to do it. I think it's a great way to do it. So, yes, I approve of that too. Okay. All right. As long as you have enough time to practice the music stuff, right? Betsy, hello, Betsy. Nice to see you. Karen says, I'm practicing a 1 page piece for Easter, Alleluia by Boyce. Second part, I get tired playing it all through. For strength, I have to play it before your routine. So I've done stuff like that before. As long as it's not how it's always done, I think it's okay. I think it's okay. Now, also consider spreading more time between the routine and that music practice. If so, and that's the better option if you have the time for it. A lot of people just don't have the time for it. So, like hypothetically, practice the routine at noon or in the morning, and then at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, practice the music. Normally, that should be okay. But if you have to cram your practice time into an hour or a half hour is even worse, then yes, that's going to be a problem, right? When I talk about the 3 levels of rest and we cover that second level, the hour minute level, that's what we're talking about. We're mostly talking about time between the routine and the music. I don't know how much of that I made clear in the books or how much of that I've made clear here in the Q and A, but that's what I'm talking about. Okay, we want to have time between because you guys have been doing my routines long enough to know that they're brutal, right? You've got to have a break afterwards. Some of you take breaks between, like you get to the lip slurs and then, or you get to the tonalization studies, take a break, and then finish the routine. Um, that's not ideal, but it's okay. If it's working for you, that's an okay way to do it. Okay. Um, yes, I approve of that one too. Okay. We've got 3 approvals in a row. Any other questions? while we're waiting for the questions, I want to revisit this Tom Bowling thing. I think you're gonna like it. Um, in the jazz stuff, I don't know what happened. That Tom Bowling album is more uniquely me, and maybe it's because we're playing my tunes, but the tunes I've written since then are a little bit more conservative and more vertical and stuff like that. So yeah, so this Tom Bowling bebop album is more uniquely me than any of the other stuff out there. I'm not saying it's necessarily better. It might be more enjoyable for some of you, depending on your tastes. All right, so Karen says I'm practicing. Oh, I skipped. Kevin says, "Hello, Kevin. Nice to see you. Hi, Mr. Lewis, and everyone else. What do you think of lung resistance trainers? I think they are a bad idea. I think they are a bad. Oh, are you talking about when you're breathing in? I have one of those that I got from the hospital. Um, I kept it, but I'm not a big fan of that kind of stuff. Um, and I know that a lot of the orchestral people do that. They want you to feel that, and I guess maybe for beginners, maybe that's okay because the beginners sometimes don't know what it means to actually blow pretty hard. I think sometimes you can do that. Okay. Um, Kevin clarifies, no, not the ones where you breathe in, but the ones that you breathe out. I am very much opposed to that as a trumpet device. I'm very much opposed to it. I remember I did some research in the UTEP library back when I was a student there, so many years ago. And I went up to they had a special room for oversized books. And in that room, I found a book about breathing for singers. And in that book, there was a chapter about this because back then, this whole idea of expanding lung capacity that way was a big deal. People were really into it, and this book went into scientific research to tell you why you shouldn't do that. Because what normally happens when you use um, excessive force like that is you scar the tissue inside your lungs and you end up with less lung capacity, not more. I would rather that if you're going to do something like that, do the holding your breath bit. This I find to be very beneficial. I find it to be very beneficial, and there's a scientific reason for it. You guys know I'm not into using science to sell my stuff, right? You guys know that. I think it's a sham, all of that stuff. The quasi scientific nonsense stuff. You guys know that about me. If you've been hanging out on my Q and A long enough, you know that the scientific stuff is usually not scientific, and in fact, it's just a way for them to sell you stuff because everybody today worships science, and I mean that. You've heard me talk about trumpet worship. Science worship is even more prevalent than trumpet worship, and um, so yes, the the fact is though, when you hold your breath, it it brings the carbon dioxide levels higher in your bloodstream. Did you guys know that your body has no mechanism for measuring oxygen in your blood. Your body does not know how much oxygen the body has. It can only measure carbon dioxide. And the way this works is when the carbon dioxide goes up, your body instinctively wants to blow it out and breathe back in the clean air. This is very interesting information. Very interesting information for what we do, right? It's not that you've run out of oxygen. It's that your body has a higher level of carbon dioxide than what you are comfortable with. Now, here's the thing. You know how there's such a thing as insulin resistance? There is also a thing called carbon dioxide resistance. And the flip side is carbon dioxide sensitivity. Now, what happens to us is we happen to have, as Americans, we tend to have very high carbon dioxide sensitivity, so that even just tiny bits of carbon dioxide make you feel like you need to stop and breathe. You hold your breath for X amount of time and you're starting to go. It's not because you're out of oxygen. It's because your body's not used to higher amounts of carbon dioxide. Your body is responding to the carbon dioxide saturation in your blood. So, what you do is you start to hold your breath for longer and longer amounts of time. You could do it on the horn by not taking a breath. And we've talked about that before. When I do the tonalization studies, I try to do them in one breath. I don't do that by speeding it up. In fact, the more I want to push this carbon dioxide thing, the slower I go. Right? So, I try to do that all the time. Now, this is actually one of the things I do when I'm sitting in dialysis. When I first got there, I was experimenting to see if it throws off the machine. But no, it doesn't. So I will hold my breath and I'll put the stopwatch on and I try to push that longer and longer and longer. There are mechanisms in your body that are triggered that make you more healthy. Believe it or not. I won't go into the details of that. But yes, that's one thing about the breathing stuff that I do approve of, but not the other. I don't think maybe the one where you blow out, maybe that's nice for beginners who just don't have a concept of how hard they should be blowing. Maybe. The truth is we don't really blow that hard when we're playing the horn. So that's actually a misnomer. Or a myth. Let's call it a myth. Misnomer is probably the wrong word. Anyway, Javier says, I have noticed that when I use the mute, the back pressure helps embouchure strength. That's right. Can this be used as a little handicap sometimes? Yes, it can. Also a handicap for the neighbors too. Right? Yes, I like both, right? I like to practice with the mute, and alternate that with very soft open practicing. I say I like to practice with a mute. Um, Truth is, I haven't done that in a long, long, long time. Karen says, is there a hard copy of Total Tonalization available? Let me look, since I have that page open right now. Ah, I don't know. I don't have any links on my page. Let's look. I'll do a search real quick. Weird that I wouldn't have. That's just weird. I'll have to. I've been promising you guys for months that I would go in there and try to straighten this mess out. And it's just so much work. I'm not seeing it anywhere on the search. And I apologize for that. Yeah, I don't know what to tell you. Oh, I remember. Oh, no, this is a different story. This is a different story. There's a problem. Let me turn on the light here. It's starting to get fuzzy again. This is a different story. The artwork in the PDF is not high enough quality for what they call global distribution. So now that I'm thinking about it, that's why it's not up anywhere else physically. Is because I don't really have time to update the artwork on there. It's like I told you, that's the oldest book, and even the third edition was published long before all these other books, and I've mastered it. I've mastered the art of publishing trumpet methods. That sounds like a weird thing to say, right? But I've done so many of them now. I know what to avoid, but I would literally have to completely rewrite the book. It's not just yeah, that's right. I'm sorry. It's not available, and it's probably not going to be available for some time. And I apologize for that. Yeah. Oh, wait, what am I talking about? That's not what I mean. Okay, so I take all that back. I was talking about the physical trumpet pyramid book. That one's not available and won't be available. So I'll have to figure out what's going on with that book. I'm sorry, I got that all mixed up. What? Look at this. Brian Lewis teaches tonalization. So that brings up a story. When I first came up with the word tonalization studies, I didn't know that term had already been used before. The Suzuki method teaches what they call tonalization. And if I had known that Suzuki was already using that that term, I wouldn't have used it on my books. But by the time I figured out that it was already being used, I had been selling those books all over the world, and there was no going back. So yes, that's a little story from the archives of what it's like to be writing these books. It's even when I look for tonalization now, it doesn't come up that way. In fact, I think as far as the internet goes, I think my use of that term is far, far more prevalent now than the Suzuki term. Either that or my computer just knows it's me and is feeding my own stuff back to me. That can always be the case, right? Anyway. All right, what else? Any other questions? Let me do a little improv while we're waiting. Any other questions? Hello, Backfeed. What mic do you use for your interface? I have a AKG, and I'm ashamed to say I don't put it away. I know this is a big no-no, but I don't. Maybe I'll find the motivation to start doing what I know I should do. This is an AKG C1000S. AKG C1000S. I love this mic. This is the third one I've bought. I love the way the trumpet sounds on it, and I don't need anything better. So yes, that's what I use. It is a powered mic, so you have to have an interface that has the voltage that goes through the cables. Now, the reason I had to buy new ones is because the old one wouldn't turn off. I still have it, but it wouldn't turn off. And I don't like that. If it won't turn off, what other things are wrong with it? Right? So I would push the button off and it would still record. So that's why I bought two new ones after that. So I have a total of 3 of them now. Betsy says, "This is so awesome, Eddie. I hope to be able to play what is in my head someday, like making a new melody on the fly." Yeah, so if you just start, I teach. Let me take you guys through an exercise, and it doesn't. When I teach it to the beginners, I teach it as a a major skill, right? So we start. Doesn't really matter what note you start on, but I like to start on the fourth scale degree. Play along if you so desire. And we do a couple minutes, maybe not minutes, maybe half of a minute on just one note. Okay? So this is specifically for Betsy. Did I say your name right? Well, I just lost. Yeah, Betsy. This is specifically for Betsy, but the rest of you can do this as well. You start on the fourth scale degree and you improvise something that sounds interesting to you. The thing about improvisation, there's no right or wrong. The only wrong is if you don't like it. And if you don't like it, you should stop being hard on yourself, right? Because not liking it is sometimes not so good either. So anyway, here we go. First step in the process. And when you do this stage, be as expressive as you can. I have students that say, I don't understand. You're only playing two notes. Why does it sound so good? They get the two notes and it sounds like two notes, right? And so anyway, here we go. Next step. Take the horn off your lips, rest a little bit, and then add a G. Play something that sounds good to you. And then add another note. If you want to go up, go down, whatever you want to do. We're going to go to A now. Sorry about the chromatic grace note. That's not supposed to be there. Oh, by the way, I'm apologizing because I'm the teacher and I'm trying to give an example, right? If you play extra notes, don't beat yourself up. The whole point is to get there, right? If you accidentally played better than just the two notes, that's not a problem. Don't try to do it that way because you're not getting the full benefit of the exercise. So anyway, back to A. Then we can add the E going the other direction. There's another chromatic grace note. Sorry about that. See what we're doing? Now we can go add a low D. Woohoo! Now we go up to B. Okay, here we go to B. Now we go to low C. All right, now we add the high C. Well, tuning C. Woohoo! And you can keep doing that up to your range, down to the low G, and don't be concerned if stuff comes out that wasn't what you meant, because that's the whole point. That's what improvisation is. Stuff comes out. You didn't mean it, but it came out. It's wrong to think. It's wrong to think that when you hear someone who, like what I just did, not that that was, I wouldn't say that was totally awesome or anything like that, but it sounded like music, right? It's wrong to think that when we're doing that, it's all in the conscious part of the mind, that we thought it and then we did it. No! The only thing I'm doing in the conscious part of my mind is telling myself what notes I can use. If I spill over into other notes, hallelujah. Praise God. That's where we're trying to go. So that's my take on how to learn to improvise. Now, playing jazz is a whole different thing, but being able to improvise is I tell people all the time, right? Jazz improvisation is two subjects: jazz, improvisation. And yes, there is improvisation in jazz, but most of what we do when we play jazz is, in terms of like the investment that we put into it, most of it is in the language. Most of your time spent working on jazz should be on an investment in the language. Anyway, let me backtrack here. Did I miss something? It looks like I did. Oh yes, Backfeed said Phantom Power. That's what it's called. Thank you. That's right. Betsy is up there. Wow, we've got a bunch of new stuff here. Kevin says, if a song changes key and you can hear the change, kind of, but none of the notes are notes that would have been sharpened, sharped, or flatted, how do you know what the new key is? That's tough. I don't know what you're saying. The question is in regarding transcribing. Oh, I see. When lights are low, but is general enough to ask here. I have the same mic. Oh, okay. Um, so at least if you have a true change of key and not an axis, axis is when it changes from minor to relative major or major to relative minor. If it's not that kind of change, then you will have at least one different note. So like if it goes from C to F, there's going to be B flats in the new key. Does that make sense? Now, I see what you're saying. If the song you're transcribing doesn't have the B flat, how do you know? You have to learn how to hear that. Is that what you're saying? That the notes in the song don't have that different keynote? Okay, yes, that comes up a lot. Beginners will always say, like if you have Mary Had a Little Lamb, right? Oh, sorry about that. Oh my. The beginners will say, why is it got in the key of one flat when there are no B's? Well, do you have to use? Same thing with Hot Cross Buns. That's usually the first beginner song everybody plays, right? Hot Cross Buns. Um, if if you're doing Hot Cross Buns in the key of F, then it's proper to have the B flat in the key signature. You don't have to use those notes. And in fact, there's a lot of times when you can use all the notes, right? Because, right, the tune might be in that key, but then you only have B natural. It happens. It's only B natural in the song. And yet it's in the key of F. And I don't mean it's Lydian. You can have harmonies. You can have harmonies that set up in a way that you only ever have B natural. So like a G chord, a C chord going to a F, that's in F. I'm sorry about this fuzziness again. I apologize. It's my hair. I'm sure it's the hair. I'm sure it's the hair. Oh my, I need to get my hair cut. So yes, you really have to learn how to hear it. Hear where home base is. That's what we always called it in school. Where is home base? When you hear Mary Had a Little Lamb, clearly that's home base. There we go. We're back again. All right. So, Kevin says, I have the same mic on Mr. Lewis's recommendation, and I totally agree. It made a huge difference in my recording quality. Wonderful. That's right. Betsy says, for myself, I just need permission, not forgiveness. Karen says, you just stay in the same key with improv. That's what I do with the if you're starting off. That's the best way to get started. And there are songs that work that way. So you can, if you want to do it over a jazz track, find a jazz track that doesn't change keys. I have the first two that we do in my series are in the key of C are Autumn Leaves. Make sure you're getting it in the right key because people do Autumn Leaves in two different keys. And also, now this is not standard key. Also, Black Orpheus, we do in the key of C also. Kevin says, cool, thank you. I'm glad I wasn't missing something easy. So some people try to say if the phrase ends on the tonic note, then it's in that key. That's not reliable. Don't go that way. Okay? That's not reliable. That's not reliable. We have open phrases, we have closed phrases, and we have modulations, and especially in jazz, it's just, people are always arguing about stuff like, so for me, Autumn Leaves is in a major key. For them, it's minor because it ends in minor. I say major because it starts in major. They say minor. It's actually one of those Axis songs. That's why I chose it for as a first song, because it doesn't change key signature. It only changes from major to relative minor, then minor to relative major, back and forth like that. I see we have a record number of people joining us today, so I'm going to keep it open for another 10 minutes to see if any more questions come in. Any other questions? Trumpet, music, anything that you would like to know that you think I might have an answer for? Betsy says, have you ever tried an Audigo mic? I know it works great for small group acoustic ensembles. That doesn't ring a bell to me. I'm not much of an equipment buff. I'm going to be honest. I'm going to be honest with you guys. That first mic that I bought that I told you wouldn't shut back off, I bought it used. I don't normally buy tech stuff used, but this guy seemed like a very good someone who kept good care of his equipment. And I needed something fast and I needed something kind of cheap. And I paid half of what it goes for today. And I'm gonna say it's just by chance that the mic ended up working that well. I didn't shop around. I didn't know what I was looking for, except for certain parameters. Um, and I knew it had those parameters based on what I've heard when I do recording sessions. I know, and what do I mean by that? I know that I like a condenser mic. I know that I like that. So I set out to find the best condenser mic I could find on the best budget. Now I don't mind paying a little bit more to get what I want. But back then I was just saving money. So and that's just to answer your question. I'm not really a real big equipment buff. I don't know much about stuff that's out there. David says, I'm having trouble translating Tennessee tones to an improv. Suggestions? Just keep in mind that you only have to do. We've talked in the lessons about the cells, right? The cell is connected by the beam. If you use a cell plus one more note, you can have a whole phrase out of that. So like this, so if we have starting on that note, we're improvising in the key of C. You already just right there used the tonalization studies in your solo and your improv. That's all it takes. And you can, yeah, I don't recommend doing this as an actual improv. You guys know what I call an improv exercise. You have real improv when you're not trying to do anything, and then you have the improv exercise where you are trying to do something. This falls under the category of improv exercise. And what I like to do with that is put the book out and just pick cells and play them. So you can go, there's another one. And you can do two if you want. Then move on to another one. You can do that. Just don't do it as a real improv, please. We have already too many people who improvise on scales. All right, so hello, Seppo, nice to see you. All right, Cardo says, by the way, Eddie, I've seen a Giardinelli BM on eBay 2 weeks ago. The price was almost $700. Are you sure it's BM? I'm looking for an MB. Mel Broyles. It's named after Mel Broyles. Don't tell me 700. As much as I like that mouthpiece, I'd sell it. Okay, so yeah, I'm not looking for BM, I'm looking for MB. If someone spent $700 on a mouthpiece? Wow. That's amazing. Wow. Yeah. I'm sorry. As much as I like it, if it was 700, I'd sell it. Yes, we have. Sepos asks if we've switched to daylight savings time yet. Yes, we have. Oh, I don't like daylight savings time. It messes, you guys know that a lot of our family we have family in Ireland, family in South Africa, and this messes everything up. Um, I shouldn't say it that way, but it's very inconvenient. Not that I'm complaining. We are here. It's better to be alive and inconvenienced. When you have, I don't know if I told you guys this, but when I was in the hospital, they said that it was a near death. I never believed it, but that's what the doctors said. And you know how people are doctor worshippers, science worshippers. So, uh, how does that work? The science worshippers, the doctors are like the bishop of that religion, and so the the doctors say that I was near death, and they act like it's such an emergency, right? When I was sick for 5 years, right? But anyway, after you go through a near death thing like that for 5 years, you learn not to complain if you're still here, right? All right, so Seppo says we will switch to it on the 29th of March. Okay. So does that? I always get the math mixed up. Does that put you closer right now or farther away in time? Does that make you earlier? I think that's right. Right? It makes no. It makes us because we spring forward. That means yes. It makes it earlier. Anyway. All right. I said I would give a extra 10 minutes, and we've got the 10 minutes. Um. God bless you guys. Really. Yeah. God bless you guys. Um. I hope you have a great week. Um, and good weekend. Enjoy your weekend. Enjoy your music. I keep telling you guys that the best advertising you could do for me, if you want to do that, the best advertising is always that you guys um, take what I teach you and make yourselves better players. When people know that the method works, there is nothing better than it. You know, there's a reason why. There's a reason why I don't do all that modern. They call it what, a funnel. There's a reason why I don't do that nonsense. It's it forces you to be false. It forces you to be fake. It forces you to try to sell to people who don't need your product. It's extremely manipulative. I don't do all of that stuff. What I care about most is that you guys get better at playing your horn. That's what matters. And it is, and I actually do care about you in that regard. I care about you anyway. But in that regard specifically, I want you guys to be successful at what you're doing. Not just don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that because I want to sell more. That's not it. I want to help more people accomplish what they want to accomplish. I hope that makes sense. Anyway, let me get going. I'm doing some gardening. I I I I am planting indigenous plants that are growing as weeds in the backyard, and I'm moving them into the front yard, into the actual garden. And well, we have gardens all over, but I'm moving them into the front so that I can get the berries when they come off. So anyway, um, Seppo says the date for the concert and the time has been set. It's May 9th, 10:30 Houston time. Thank you for telling us. I'm going to put that in my date book right now. Anyway, one more time, God bless you guys, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.